It's been a few days since the Nintendo Treehouse at E3 gave us a ton of new Pokemon Sun and Moon information. That there was gameplay, there was talking with developers, and now that some time has passed, the dust has settled, we can really go through and try to figure out all of the information that we might have missed as it came up live, or all those little subtleties that the game developers and gameplay was dropping at us. So there might have been a couple things you missed, and let's go all in and let's start off with the earliest game demo. That's what this was. That in the game development cycle, you know, this is a pretty beta footage right here, and this was actually the earliest that a game has ever been shown live in the development cycle, so there was a little bit of worry in the developers, like hopefully this game doesn't glitch out, crash, or break, but it seems like everything was pretty polished and it went off pretty well. But that's actually really interesting that Pokemon Sun and Moon is this big experience, that there's a lot of work going into this, and E3 out here in June compared to the release date at November, you know, they really wanted to show a lot of gameplay instead of give us a video and then talk about the video for a bit, so it led to a longer conference, even though it might have been at a little bit of a risk. Next up, before we even go into any more gameplay, Zygarde was in this whole E3 discussion. That when we were talking about, they did show the Zygarde 10% form, the Zygarde complete form, and this is interesting because we got the news just a couple days ago, and it came out of nowhere that, alright, Korokoro gave us the information, and we didn't think we were going to hear much else about Zygarde until maybe the movie, but no, it's actually going to be in Pokemon Sun and Moon in some way, and the developers actually confirm this and say, yeah, it's not going to be a part of the main storyline, but it will have a story, it will have its own significance in Pokemon Sun and Moon, and that's really wild to think about, that suddenly Zygarde's not totally forgotten from Kalos, but it will come back, and you can see from the backgrounds that it doesn't look like they're in Kalos. It's not like we're going to go to a new region or potentially back to Kalos. It's still a very slim possibility, but that's not what the developers here are saying. You can see that we're on some kind of island. We're still in the Alola region as the gameplay is being debuted for Zygarde 10% and Zygarde Complete. So maybe it'll be like the Delta chapter. We don't really know too much. We just know that it's completely confirmed to be a part of the game and not like an event or just make some kind of small little appearance. Also, the bracelets, you know, those mega fusion bracelet break things that no one knows anything about. Well, apparently that was brought up as a question, and the hosts were little, you know, hey, some people might have noticed in the audience and our viewers, they see these bracelets. Can you tell us anything about that? You know, it was like, are we not allowed to be talking about this right now? Because it is a pretty significant piece of information. And it was like, okay, yeah, we know you know about the bracelets. We'll give you information soon. So we really don't know much else about them, but they are acknowledged and information will be coming soon. So I guess that kind of counts as information. And then we can talk about the starter Pokemon, because there were talk about just why the starters are the way they are and what kind of inspiration was brought up for the starter Pokemon. And mostly it's just because Game Freak, the developers, they wanted them to be cute. And you can look at that. You can kind of tell that there's almost a starter for everyone, that you can say, yeah, I'm with Rowlet, go Team Litten, oh man, Poplio's the best, I'm Team Poplio all the way. And you can tell like a lot of work and a lot of passion went in there just to make sure they were as cute as possible and as relatable as possible, which is another thing that right now with Pokemon Sun and Moon, they want it to be a very immersive experience. They want it to be very relatable. They want people to be very excited for this game, and by doing so, one of the main thoughts with the starters is that you want it to be understanding that someone from any culture can identify what a cat is, can identify what an owl is, can identify what a seal is. So you can look at those and identify their real world species really quickly and then relate that back into Pokemon Sun and Moon depending on what you like about them. And you know, the colors, of course, the blue Pokemon is going to be a water type. You know, they just want to keep it very simple so that way it's easier to understand when you actually get like all these new Pokemon, this whole new experience, but also keeping the starters very adorable. I like all of them. They're pretty cute. I will agree with Masuda on that one. And then we can also see that once we get into the gameplay, things start getting pretty crazy. Like with the starters, Poplio actually gets a new move. We can see at level 8 it gets Disarming Voice. Ooh, okay. That's a little fancy right there. He's just getting a random fairy type move to use, and that actually improves your coverage really well. That we have Pound, and then we also get Water Gun for stab, and then Disarming Voice. So we get a cool amount of coverage off of the Poplio, but the fairy type is a bit interesting as to why it would just randomly learn Disarming Voice. Either it's going to get, either Disarming Voice and fairy type moves are going to be distributed to more Pokemon, or it could maybe mean something. This isn't confirmed anyway, but it is interesting that level 8 Poplio does get the Disarming Voice. Any speculation after that is just speculation. We can also see inside the battle, there's a lot of things going on. Status tracking. We can also look at our moves. that you can click on the little information button, and then we can actually see the base power, what kind of moves our moves are going to be. Is it status move? Is it physical? Is it special? So that's really going to work out with our Pokemon, because we can see the stats. Like, okay, we have a higher physical stat than special stats, so we should be using this physical move. This would have been a great help to anyone playing the game for the first time. So it does reduce just the barrier of, I wouldn't say barrier to entry, because Pokemon's a really low barrier to entry game, but it makes it easier to understand how the game functions if you can really figure out, hey, I'm using a physical move on a special attacking Pokemon. Maybe I shouldn't do that. And the information's there. You don't have to search for it as much. Same with the status, so you can actually look and see how many stat points you've lowered or dropped on a scale of 1 to 6. So you can see that it's gone down by 2 stages, gone up by 1 stage, and this is also really nice because you don't have to keep track of all of that in your head, which is pretty annoying, and that's what Game Freak said. They don't want to make it as much of a mental game, remembering everything, if you can just kind of simply click and figure out all the stats you have and figure out all about the moves. And potentially some other gameplay features. I'm expecting, you know, there to be like a counter for Trick Room, a counter for sand and weather effects or something like that, which would be very helpful, since I'm always like, is this my last turn of Trick Room, or do I still have one more? Like, it's really hard to remember, especially with the way that it turns in and the turn that you use the move on and stuff like that. So it could work for Tailwind, and that would be a really nice animation effect to add on to the game. Also, in the game, we can see that the time of day actually has significance, that depending on what time of the day you're battling, the shadows will be in different directions, or they'll be shorter, longer, something like that. We can see that Popplio in the evening is going to have a very stretched out shadow, and it really sets that mood. It really adds a lot to the game. Like, wow, the detail feels like we're playing Pokemon. It has this real life feeling to it, and that's really nice. Now, when it comes to the actual trainers, the trainers do have their own interactions as well, that if you're walking through the grass, you can see you're waiting and trying to like just get through this grass. You know, you move your arms up, you're trying to push through the grass, and even your trainers and the opposing trainers do show kind of things, that they have different animations when they're ready to battle. You know, you can see them throwing up a Pokeball, or just like ready to look for a fight. They want to make eye contact, and that's kind of shown through a lot of other features, like your screen getting a little darker on the top when you're about ready to encounter a trainer for a battle. And then in the battle, the trainers call out their moves, they call in their Pokemon, they do all kinds of different things. You can see your trainers thinking about moves. So a lot of detail has not even gone into just the Pokemon, but also the trainers and the engagement with other people in the game, which I think was pretty awesome. Also, items on the ground, they have a little bit of a sparkle to them. You can see them just glistening in the sun, potentially, which is pretty nice, so you don't lose track of an item in this new 3D landscape that is being developed right here. Also, catching and sending out and returning Pokemon has their own animation, that when Pokemon faints, you can see like a blue callback, kind of like from the game when they just like, Pokemon, return! You can see that there's actually a returning animation that's more detailed than any other animation we've seen before. And when we catch a Pokemon, there is a new animation for that as well. So it's all flashy and looks pretty awesome, I will say. Now, when we do catch a Pokemon, some funny things happened at the E3 trailer. So first off, we can see that Ladybuzz, the first Pokemon catch, has the Pokedex number 20. So regional Pokedex over national Pokedex, and we are going to be able to encounter non-Alola region Pokemon, which is pretty interesting. And we can see that when we catch Pick-a-Peck, it's number 10. So we have the starters, that's 1 through 9, because 3 types for 3 evolutions and stuff like that. So we have 9, and then Pick-a-Peck is going to be the first naturally occurring Pokemon in the wild. But what about Yungoos? We catch Yungoos, and then the screen fades out into the Rotom Dex. Either this was an observer mistake, that he heard Rotom Dex and decided to click the button to transition the screen, or there was something that we shouldn't know about Yungoos, because we can see that Pick-a-Peck has 2 more evolutions, which is very standard for all of the evolutionary birds, except for like Taillow into Swellow, and also Noctowl into Hoot Hoot or something, or Hoot Hoot into Noctowl, like that. But for the most part, we're expecting a 3-stage evolution, just like how we had it for Pidgey into Pidgeot, and then we also had it for a lot of the other Pokemon, like Starly into Staraptor. You know, we're expecting 2 or 3 stages, so that wasn't a big surprise, but Yungoos gets cut off before we get to see its Pokedex number or what it evolves into. So there could either be a funky evolutionary line, or it's just, you know, simple mistakes, and things like that will happen. Now, one thing is that trainer customization is completely confirmed, so don't try to worry about it. You don't have to overthink and look and see, like, he's wearing a different shirt, he has a different color, this is looking different from that, why does that person not have a hat? Well, the actual translator, there was a talk of it, they just said, yeah, trainer customization is confirmed. So don't worry about figuring out or speculating it, it's purely confirmed information at this point from developers, because they actually say it in their game. And then lastly, we have Tapu Koko. We know almost nothing about Tapu Koko, except that it's a guardian deity of the island that we're on, and people have a lot of reverence for it. So there we go. We can just kind of see that it's talked about many times as well, that we can see Hala, you know, you have encountered with Tapu Koko the day before, and that was one of the details that was talked about with this demo, that we already have our Pokemon, we already have a little bit of gameplay knowledge. You know, they just wanted to speed it up, that way we don't have to go through a lot of text and dialogue for most of our E3 experience. But apparently we met with Tapu Koko the day before, and this is our second day, and then we go for the whole festival and stuff like that, and even the villagers, even Kukui, Hala, everyone's talking about, you know, Tapu Koko. You know, it's that little rascal just kind of going around visiting the young trainers and messing with them, and also it being the guardian of this island. But each island has a guardian, which may mean something, and then it's an offering to the guardian deity of Tapu Koko. So we don't really know anything else. Since Tapu Koko visited us, it seems to be a tangible entity, so it might actually be a Pokemon, legendary Pokemon. Who knows? There's 4 islands, so that'd be interesting if we had 4 legendaries instead of 3. Each island has a guardian of some sort. So yeah, that's what they mean, like this island's guardian, this is island compared to the other islands. So things are starting to layer up and lead to some interesting information, but I think that's all we can really get out of this E3 conference without really digging in too deep. I mean, we can see that there's little notches for when you select yes or no in the screen, so very small details, also just good animation quality overall. Yeah, we can dissect this down to nothing, or we can also just kind of figure out these seem to be the most important information that we got from Pokemon Sun and Moon at E3. If you guys think there was bigger information, please comment down below. If you think there was something else that was worth mentioning, I think it's pretty cool. There wasn't like huge leaks or anything like this. I think that it was a very specific information that was put out during the live gameplay as well. We did get that trailer showing us Grubbin and all the other new Pokemon. So we already got a big dose of information from that. You can figure out all of the abilities and stuff on the main website, but specifically from E3, I think that's all the information that we can kind of suck out of it. I think we're good to go. So if you guys enjoy the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.